William Eklund is eligible for a contract extension starting July 1st. How much is our sweet Swedish prince going to get paid?
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker of the Reef, also the co-host of Locked On NHL. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen, proudly part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do, just follow along wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be looking at a potential William Eklund extension. So we're going to be looking at one, is he deserving of it? Spoiler, yes. Two, comparable contracts from the 2021 class. So as some of these players from the same draft class as William Eklund start to get paid, what's Eklund's number going to look like? And what is that? Is it going to be worth it? And yes, Eklund's going to be worth it. So let's start by kind of first, we kind of did the Eklund review a little bit last week, but let's kind of deep dive a little bit more on Eklund and what he brings to the San Jose Sharks. So when looking at contracts, two big factors you have to kind of keep in mind is production and ice time. So those are two big things to kind of keep in the back of your mind as we go through this, right? And we're going to be first starting with Eklund and what his production and what he brings to the San Jose Sharks, and kind of compare that to other players of, his same draft class and kind of other players. And as we build the case for what an Eklund extension should look like, because 100%, like the Sharks should try to get Eklund signed long term, but that's just what I think. So, but okay, William Eklund, of course, last year 77 games, 17 goals, 41 assists, just missed that 60 point plateau. 151 shots on goal, played 1933 average time on ice. Corsi force. So when Eklund was on the ice, the Sharks took 50.04% of the shots. Goals for when Eklund was on the ice, the Sharks scored 50% of the goals. Just as a reminder, right? This Sharks team pretty bad at scoring. So you have to kind of keep that in mind with San Jose, with all of their kind of scoring and production numbers. Like, this team was one of the worst teams, especially over the last 2 years here, when it came to like just scoring. Like, it's bad. This team, they're just not good at scoring goals right now. So, which is fine. All right, we're working on it. We think next year, hopefully, going to be a little bit better. That's the hope, right? But the Sharks this year, they scored 2.54 goals per game, which was actually dead last. The Preds were next at 2.59, Anaheim at 2.65. So, like, Eklund is scoring basically 60 points on a team that's only averaging 2.5 goals a game. Right. And this was an improvement from the year before, where they scored like 2.2 goals per game. So we, again, moving in the right direction. But something to keep in mind, right, is just there's not a lot of scoring happening on this team. So looking at Eklund's evolving hockey card here, 70th percentile player playing first line minutes, 63rd percentile offensively, 63rd percentile defensively. Goals above replacement is pretty solid. Expected goals above replacement a little bit lower, but he plays on the power play, like first line minutes on the power play. He plays a ton on the like shorthanded. Like, Eklund is a full 200-foot player for the San Jose Sharks, and does well in that role as a full 200-foot player, where he, of course, can help drive offense. He's doing good things defensively to help kind of shut things down and limit shot attempts and limit expected goals. Like, Eklund's a good player, right? Looking at his now it's advanced hockey stats from JFresh Hockey. They just got their new website up and running here. Projected WAR, 68th percentile WAR. So that's wins above replacement. How many wins above a replacement level player does Eklund provide? So, and you're seeing the growth if you're looking at, like, last year he was like below 50%. This year he made a huge jump. And the WAR percentage is a 3-year weighted data. So this year he's above 75%. So as a player, his defense has increased. Like, he's done a very good job defensively. The goals are where you would expect. That's something we talked about last week, where you would like to see Eklund be closer to a 25 goal scorer, right? If you're like a 25 goal scorer to 50 assist type of guy, which I think the assist Eklund will certainly start to hit those marks here. But Eklund does a great job defensively on the penalties. He plays tough competition. He's got solid teammates, like, as a top line player, but like he plays against the other team's best players, and he does really well with his situation here. Looking at his hockey stats card, 0.61 offensive rating, which is like 90th percentile, 0.7 defensive rating, which is like 66th percentile, and a net rating of 6.6, which is kind of right around that like 85, 90th percentile. Like, Eklund is a very good hockey player, and he plays a ton. The only thing, again, is the goals. You would like to see those a little bit higher here. Also, kind of looking at where Eklund is deployed, and what he does with his deployment. He's an effective top 6 two-way forward he plays tough competition. He does get a little bit more offensive zone deployment, but again, right, with this team was basically a line and a half for most of the season. Maybe 2 lines on a good night. Like, of course, Eklund is going to be put in those situations to try to score, because the Sharks just didn't really have a lot of other options. So, I think it's fair to say that, like, in the first 2 years of Eklund's NHL career, like full-time NHL career here, he has proven to be, a great player for the Sharks, right? He does a lot for San Jose. Plays in all different types of situations, and the numbers and analytics say that he does a great job in those situations, no matter what, playing defensively, playing on the PK, playing on the power play, like whatever you need Eklund to do, he does it, and does it very well. Again, there's things we want to work on for him, and I think the goal scoring is going to be kind of that next thing, right? Getting that shot just a little bit more lethal, right? And it does suck right now with the hand, with the wrist surgery after his accident, that he's going to miss kind of majority of the summer shooting the puck here that you would like to see him do. But I do feel like he is a player who could be is still figuring things out, and is still an ascending player. The ascension's probably getting close to where we think he's going to be, but as this Sharks team again continues to round out and add more talent, and Celebrini and Smith turn into what we think Celebrini and Smith are going to turn into, and whatever the Sharks do on the back end, right? Like, you feel like Eklund is going to be in the mix as one of probably the third or fourth best player on the Sharks when they're at their peak, right? Like, when the Sharks are like absolutely, hopefully winning Stanley Cups, like, Eklund is going to be a huge, huge piece to what the Sharks are going to. And maybe he's just kind of that guy that, like, again, we know Celebrini's got that dog in him. He's going to do whatever he's asking. I expect Celebrini to kind of make that next big step this season. Will Smith is probably going to be a little bit more offensively focused, which is fine. That's Will Smith's forte. And whatever the Sharks do defensively between Sam Dickinson and whomever else they add defensively, but you still feel like Eklund is going to be one of these massive pieces, and maybe he's just a guy who does a little bit of everything. And maybe that one season he has 30 goals, but if he settles in that 20 to 25 goal scorer with 50 points, like 25 and 50 is kind of those magic numbers I'm kind of projecting for Eklund. But he plays in all situations, right? And he's giving you 19, 20 minutes a night, and then in the postseason, right, if you got to play him 22 minutes at a night, whatever it is, like, that's I believe what Eklund's role is for the Sharks, like as a top 6, potentially top line, if not easily top 6 for like a super awesome second liner. And maybe if you want a little bit more size, like the long-term thinking, maybe you want a little bit more size with Celebrini and Smith on the top line and Eklund's on your second line playing with Misa or whomever. Again, we're projecting a lot here. Like Eklund's going to be a massive, massive part of the Sharks' future here. So let's look at what some other contracts look like for, especially for that 2021 classes. Some of those guys start to get paid. And then we're going to talk about kind of what an Eklund contract would look like. So we'll get to that here. Just 1 second. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I like the in-shell variety. I like to have a bag at my desk at work just in case they're right around 2:30. Get that snacky feeling. Wonderful Pistachios, great to have on the go there. Or if you don't like the shells, they have the no shell variety. They got a bunch of different flavors for you to choose from. So get snacking and get cracking with these snacks that pack a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, before we continue, of course, do want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. If you haven't yet, perfect time to subscribe as we continue to kind of build our off-season blueprint, what I think the Sharks should do. We're doing kind of all of our research right now, getting ready to have the simulated off-season where I kind of do what I think Mike Greer should do, which of course will be 100% wrong, but it's still fun to do. So make sure you're following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Okay. So what are some of the other contracts from especially the 2021 draft class, right? And we're going to be mainly focusing on the forwards doesn't make sense to compare a defenseman to Eklund and stuff. So again, keep in mind, production, time on ice, your two biggest factors when it comes to contracts here. So let's look at Matty Beniers, who was the second overall pick in that draft class. So he signed a 8-year contract that's at 7.142,857 years. So that contract started this season here. So we'll just say 7.1, 7.2, whatever it is. Beneers this season, he really hasn't kind of made that jump that you would really kind of expect. One thing to keep in mind, though, Beneers does play center, Eklund a winger, but Beneers is a good player who, again, this year, 43 points, 20 goals, 23 assists, 82 games, playing 1841. Season before that, he had 37 points, and the season before that, he had 57 points. So you're looking at a player who, basically his rookie season topped out at 57 points, and then really hasn't seen the same jump in points while playing way less minutes than Eklund. Eklund, of course, 58 points this season and playing 19 and a half minutes. So even though, yes, Matty Beniers is a center, that does help a little bit more. But again, it's Eklund does more, is doing more with a team that scores a little bit more, right? But you can see why Eklund's I don't want to say more important, or maybe, but I don't want to say more important, but I think you can see Eklund's impact, right? For a team, again, horrible team in the Sharks, can't score, but Eklund does, he's got scored more points and he plays more in more situations than what Matty Beniers does. So 7.2, I think, is easily the starting for Eklund. Another guy also that draft class, Dylan Gunther, who was picked 9th. So couple picks after by the Utah or he was picked by the Arizona Coyotes, now with formerly of the Utah Hockey Club and now with the Utah Mammoths. So he's just finished his ELC, and he will be starting his 8-year deal at 7.142, kind of that same number as Matty Beniers. One thing is Gunther is much better at, like, he's just a much more natural goal scorer than William Eklund, right? And you kind of knew that with going through the draft process with him, right? So this last season, Dylan Guenther, he had 60 points, 27 goals, and 33 assists. Year before, in 45 games, he had 35 points with 18 goals and 17 assists. Only played 15.55 a night in the last 2 years. He's been kind of over that 16-minute mark, kind of hovering close to 17 minutes this last season. But isn't still like the all-around player that William Eklund is. Definitely scores. Like Dylan Guenther, goal scorer, noted goal scorer in the NHL, and probably at his peak is probably flirting with 40 goals a season like that. Career year, probably flirting with 40 goals. Do I think Eklund is a 40 goal scorer? Probably not, for being honest. Like, I think Eklund probably tops out at like a 30, maybe 35. He gets really lucky, but he's probably like a 30 goal scorer at his very, very peak. And the hope is, right, that 25 goal scorer. But again, William Eklund does a lot more stuff everywhere else on a team that's also much worse. Utah definitely, like, they were hovering around that playoff picture till the very end, and and they scored a little bit more than the Sharks this season. So where did they finish with their goal scoring? Pulling up right now. They were Utah Hockey Club. They were 21st at 2.93 goals for per game. So again, not like huge, but when you're scoring almost half a goal more, like, of course that team is going to rack up more points. So the next kind of contract to keep an eye on here, Matt Coronado, who just signed his contract extension. He was 13th pick of that same draft. He just finished up his ELC and is signing a 7-year deal at $6.5 million. So a little more of a goal scorer with Coronado. 77 games, had 24 goals this year, and 47 points for the Calgary Flames. And Coronado, a little bit more like he's a guy who's hasn't played as many NHL games and kind of spent a little bit longer incubating in the AHL. So he only has 112. This was kind of his first full season in the NHL, has 112 NHL games compared to Eklund, who's like in the 170s right now. But 24 goals, 23 assists, 47 points, while playing 17 and a half minutes this season. Previous, like the year before that, or he played like half the season in NHL, half of the season in the AHL. He was also an AHL All-Star that year. I talked to Coronado for a little bit, but he was only averaging like 12 and a half minutes, and he scored 9 points in 34 games. So really, kind of established himself as an NHL player this year and was rewarded with it. So, again, right, $6.5 million. Eklund easily does way more stuff than Matt Coronado. Maybe the goal scoring isn't quite there, but this Flame teams still they struggle to score, kind of like the Sharks. They were 2.68 goals for per game, and Coronado was a big part of them scoring goals. So okay. The last one from that season, and actually the guy furthest down in the draft, is Wyatt Johnson. So Wyatt Johnson just finished his ELC, and he's getting ready to start a 5-year deal at $8.4 million. Wyatt Johnson looking like the absolute steal of the draft from that year. 82 as a 23rd pick in that draft. Dallas and their development team, man, just something different. But 33 goals, 38 assists, 71 points in 82 games this season with the Dallas Stars. Granted, Dallas, pretty good team. Last I checked, pretty good team. They were third in scoring this year at 3.35 goals for per game. So much more production to be around. But I'm not saying Wyatt Johnson is not a coattail rider like Wyatt Johnson. Wyatt Johnson's a dude, right? And like making a lot of teams look bad for passing on him. Johnson, who's played 3 years now in the NHL and signed this contract earlier this season. He's played 246 games, has been basically, his rookie season, he scored 24 goals, and then he's been over 30 goals the last couple seasons with 65 and 71 points this year. Playing this year, he played almost 19 minutes as he continues to kind of grow in his development here. And it looks like, again, like a guy who's probably going to be in that 70, 80 point range for the forthcoming future. So all these contracts from the 2021 season, have all been signed. I know. And when did Wyatt Johnson sign his? But most of these contracts signed before we knew the cap spike was coming, right? So what does that do for when did he? I'll just make sure Wyatt Johnson when he signed his. So he signed his. Actually, he just signed his on March 7th. So we knew the big contract extension cap jump was coming, but only a 5-year deal because he wants to get back in that salary cap game again. So with the increase in salary cap, right? We know it's going to be 95.5. Then it's going to be over 100. And basically in 3 years' time, it's going to be at least 110. So we're seeing huge jumps in cap space here. What does that do to William Eklund's perceived value? And that number is going to be a little bit higher than I think any of us expected. We'll talk about it here in 1 second. All right, before we figure out how much William Eklund's going to get paid, I do want to thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night, until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, so we saw all these contracts, and most of them were started with a 7. Wyatt Johnson started with an 8. And, I think you can make the case for which players are better and stuff. But again, looking at it from the Sharks perspective, right? What Eklund does for this team. There's a team like the Sharks that has $1 bajillion in cap space, right? They have $40 million in cap space this season that whatever contract Eklund signs doesn't affect this upcoming this contract will not kick in until the 26-27 season, right? Because he'll also have one more year on his ELC. I, for one, am very much in the pro sign William Eklund for as long as you can camp, right? Because the longest you can sign him for will be 8 years. So if you sign William Eklund to an 8-year contract, so he's got 22 now. He'll be 23 at the beginning of the next season. So this contract won't kick in until he's 24, right? If you sign him to an 8-year deal, that 8-year deal will go from his age 24 season all the way through his age 31 season. So you're getting William Eklund in his prime at whatever number this is. So, and I think with the way the economics of the NHL are and the way that the salary cap is going and heading and stuff, and the way teams, I think, right, it used to be a lot more of the bridge deals where you would sign, we saw it with Timo Meier and Tomas Hertl, where you sign these players to short-term deals before you give them their long-term deals. And we saw the Sharks, kind of get personally, they kind of got, it backfired on them, right? Because you're not getting the prime years with these contracts when you do that. And I would rather pay Eklund now for 8 years. Here's what what we think you're going to be worth over that 8-year time. So that number might be a little bit high, but I think it's going to work out in the long run. And then when that contract's over, then you jump to the let's sign you for 3 or 4 year, the 4-year type of, the deals. Don't do the bridge at the beginning, do the bridge at the end. That's my thinking. So, Evolving Hockey released their contract, their contract projections, and they started doing contract extensions. So thank you, Evolving Hockey. They have Mr. Eklund signing a contract, like they have, their contract projections, and they give like a likelihood, kind of percentage. So here's what they project. They're projected. He would be signing. So that next season, here are the other players who are eligible for contract extensions. Connor McDavid, pretty good. Jack Eichel, pretty good. Kirill Kaprizov, pretty good. Jason Robertson, Connor Bedard, like there's this extension group is going to be a massive extension group. So Eklund, they have projected to sign 8 years at $9.648 million. So I know what you're thinking right now. That's a lot of money. But again, I just laid out, right? Eklund's going to be, this contract is going to go from his age 24 through his age 31 season. It's a long time. So that's why you're paying such a high number. And again, we know the cap is going to be up to 110. So where do you think that cap is going to be 5, 6, 7, 8 years? Could we be looking at 150? And if you're paying William Eklund $9 million and the cap is 150, like by the end of that contract, like $150 million, like that's not unreasonable. Hopefully that there's not another global pandemic and flat capex, but like the way the game is growing and you got 2 new teams projected to come here at some point, like $150 million by the time that Eklund contract, it's like that's a small percentage. So you have to think long term, right? $9.6 million. That they have that as a 38% likelihood that he's there. The next one will be a 7-year deal at about a little under, or is at 8.5, which again, you're kind of splitting hairs. Like at that point, just pay the extra year for the $1 million, right? Some of these shorter term, if you wanted to look at the bridge deals, a 2-year deal at basically $5 million, a 3-year deal at $6 million, and a 4-year deal at $7 million. But again, like, do you really want to get into the business of a bridge deal? And if I'm the Sharks, right, you spent the last couple of years just burning things down. I think it's time to draw a sand in the line and say, we're not doing that anymore. It's time to pay our young players. Guy who, right, William Eklund, they have asked, we need you to go to the AHL. We need you to work on X, Y, and Z. Eklund spent entire season in the AHL working on X, Y, and Z. Better player for it, right? In the NHL, buddy, sorry, man. We don't have a lot of centers. You got to play with Luke Cunnin for a while. Hey, we need you to play center for a little bit. Okay, whatever you need, right? Guy who shows up, comes to work, is one of your biggest contributors. I think it would go a long way for the organization to get this deal done, right? And say, this is that, like, again, that line in the sand. We're not selling anymore. We are building forward. William Eklund is one of our pieces that we are building with. And we want him to be here for a long time, to grow with Celebrini and Smith and Dickinson and whoever else, right? I know that's a lot of money. But again, look at the way the cap is growing, or even over the next 3 seasons. $110 million, and that'll be the second year of this deal. $9 million at 110 cap. That's what you're seeing these like $7-8 million deals right now. So AFP Analytics, they also have theirs. Their contract is a little bit smaller. So they have Eklund signing a projected contract of 6 years at 7.7, which is, again, pretty close to what's evolving hockey, at least when it comes to the number, right? Their 6 years is at 7.8. So, but again, right, then you're getting into that contract's ending right as he's kind of in his prime, maybe starting to kind of the down of his prime. Then you're looking at another potential long-term contract for that. So I'm very much in the pay him whatever it takes at a young, like for as long as you possibly can, because I think Eklund is going to be that guy for you. And yes, you still have Celebrini and Smith contracts that you're going to have to figure out, but I'm not like the Sharks. Again, they have all the cap space in the world, right? The only forward who is currently under contract, actually the only player, to be honest, who's currently under contract for the 27-28 season there's one. It's Tyler Toffoli. Yes. Celebrini and Smith will be signed, will be like under, they will get extensions, et cetera, et cetera. But you have to start building. And I think William Eklund is worth every penny for what he brings all over the ice. And a guy who I honestly think will be in the running to wear an A next season. So Mike Greer, give that man his money. That's gonna be it for me today. We'll be back tomorrow with some draft profiles for some WHL players. So make sure you're following along wherever you get podcasts, and of course you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at My Fry Hole. Till tomorrow. Bye, friends.